Today we're diving deep into the annals of history to explore some of the most bizarre and bewildering moments ever recorded. History truly is a treasure trove of fascinating stories, and so today we are counting down the top 10 weird moments in history. Number 4 will have you rolling on the floor. So buckle your seatbelts and come join us as we embark on this journey through time. Number 10. The Kentucky Meat Shower. This strange event happened in 1876 while Mary Crouch of Olympia Springs, Kentucky was outside making soap. Suddenly, all around her, chunks of meat started falling from the sky. She described it as being the size of large snowflakes. Word spread quickly, and many neighbors stopped by to see it for themselves. 2 of Crouch's neighbors decided that they would actually taste this meat. Yes, they actually ate some of this meat that had fallen from the sky. According to their reports, it tasted like venison. Number 9. Thomas Jefferson's broken heart and broken wrist. It seems like our early founding father, Thomas Jefferson, is just like any other guy. In 1786, a widow Thomas Jefferson met Maria Cosway. Maria stole his heart, and evidently the feelings were mutual. Although married, Maria seemed to be smitten by him also. Their frolicking came to a sudden, painful end around September 8, 1786, when Jefferson somehow broke his right wrist. We know very little about the cause of injury due to Jefferson's mysterious secrecy, but he was almost certainly with Maria at the time. William Franklin wrote that Jefferson dislocated his wrist while attempting to jump over a fence in the Petit Cour. Number 8. The Great Boston Molasses Flood. In January 1919, Boston suffered one of history's strangest disasters, a devastating flood of molasses. The Great Molasses Flood tore through the city's north end and deposited so much gooey residue that locals claimed they could still smell molasses on warm days decades later. The Purity Distilling Company had built a gigantic tank in Boston's north end in 1915 to supply a booze-making operation. But just after noon, something went horribly wrong. Witnesses later recalled hearing noises that sounded like gunfire as the tank's rivets popped and the steel sides ripped open. Suddenly, 26 million pounds of molasses were tearing down Commercial Street in a 15-foot wave. Now, this may sound like something straight from a cartoon, but the surging molasses was a shockingly destructive force. The wave moved at upwards of 35 miles per hour, and the power was sufficient enough to rip buildings off of their foundations. The molasses snapped the support girders from an elevated train track and smashed multiple houses. The wave of molasses moved so quickly and so forcefully that anyone who was unlucky enough to be in its way did not stand any chance. The flood claimed 21 lives and another 150 people suffered injuries. Number 7. Goldfish swallowing. We've seen some pretty crazy challenges in our day. Even in the 1930s, college fads had some level of craziness. The most popular challenge of all was swallowing a live goldfish. The goldfish swallowing challenge began in 1939 when a Harvard freshman agreed to gulp down a live goldfish for $10. MIT's newspaper, The Tech, describes the freakish scene. As the title of the article clarifies, Hayes was hailed as the new champion of intercollegiate goldfish swallowers. Number 6. Benjamin Franklin was not allowed to write the Declaration of Independence. Phew, that's a long one. But it's true. He may be one of the founding fathers of the United States of America, but Benjamin Franklin was forbidden from writing the Declaration of Independence. Franklin was kind of a prankster, and he was known for putting subtle jokes in many of his papers. According to Ormond Sevey, when they were deciding who would write it, Jefferson was chosen over the more qualified and respected Benjamin Franklin, as some feared that Franklin would embed humor and satire in it that would actually be recognized until it was too late to change it. Once completed, he was also one of the founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence. Number 5. Pole sitting. way before TikTok and long before hashtags. People were known to do some pretty dangerous and crazy things. One of those fads was the strange spectacle of pole sitting. Alvin Shipwreck Kelly, he was the original influencer for the Roaring '20s. He was first dared by a friend in 1924 to sit on a flagpole and succeeded in staying up there for 13 hours and 13 minutes. One time, he sat on a pole for 22 days at Madison Square Gardens during a dance marathon until the last dancers dropped. Number 4, the dancing plague. Like all good plague stories, this one begins with omens. In 1518, residents of the city of Strasbourg were struck by a sudden and seemingly uncontrollable urge to dance. The hysteria was kicked off when a woman who was called Frau Tophia stepped into a street and began to twist, twirl, and shake. She kept up her solo dance-a-thon for nearly a week, and before long, some 36 other people had joined in. By August, as many as 400 victims had joined, with no other explanation. Many dancers collapsed from sheer exhaustion. Some even died from strokes and heart attacks. Number 3, Napoleon attacked by bunnies. Once upon a time, the famous conqueror Napoleon Bonaparte was attacked by bunnies. How did this happen? Well, according to legend, he ordered his chief of staff Alexandre Berthier to organize a festive luncheon and a rabbit hunt. So, what started as an ordinary hunt soon began to spiral into mayhem. Berthier had made one key mistake. The bunnies were tame ones, not wild. When the hunt began, the rabbits were released from their cages. And instead of running away in fear, as Napoleon and the hunters thought would happen, these hungry, ravenous rabbits charged after the group. Napoleon, in particular, seemed to be their target. The once mighty emperor of France, the great Napoleon Bonaparte, was reduced to hastily retreating from a horde of rabbits. Number 2, telephone booth stuffing. This trend started in 1959 in South Africa and soon began to spread like wildfire. Boys and girls would cram into these boxes and fight for a new record at each of the universities around the world. 25 students at the Durban, South Africa YMCA made the Guinness Book of World Records by squeezing most of their bodies into a standard upright phone booth. They say that while they were working on setting this record, the phone in the booth rang, but they were all so tightly packed into this small space that no one was able to answer the phone. And number 1 of the top 10 weird things that happened in history is Thomas Edison and the creepy doll. We all know that Thomas Edison was the inventor behind the phonograph technology. Well, in 1877, he had this great idea of taking that technology and placing it inside a toy doll. It seemed like such a great idea. Just turn the crank and nursery rhymes or whatever else he recorded would play. Unfortunately, production of these dolls only lasted for about 6 weeks. It was a complete failure. The dolls were deemed too scary and pulled from the market. The fragile wax recordings were often damaged during shipping, and children found them to be really scary. Just listen to this. And tell me what you think. Would you be scared if your parents brought this home to you? Well, there you have it, our top 10 weird moments in history. But I want to hear from you. Have you heard some really cool, interesting stories from history? Comment those below. And if you like this video and want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button. See you next time.